Hey there, I'm Pete Townsend, and this is Money Never Sleeps. We look inside the minds of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. This episode of Money Never Sleeps is sponsored by Philip Lee, one of Ireland's fastest growing corporate law firms and expert advisors at the heart of the Dublin and London startup, fintech, and crypto communities. On the show this week, we've got
I'm Adam Bialy. I'm founder and CEO of Fiat Republic.
Fiat Republic are building the compliance-first, API-driven, and highly secure and scalable bridge between banks and crypto. In this episode, Adam and I talk through the experiences that culminated in a vision for Fiat Republic, the current state of play in the relationships between banks and crypto platforms that makes Fiat Republic such a strong proposition, the unique rudder that is Adam's leadership style, raising a $3.5 million seed round for Fiat Republic in advance of the launch of their MVP, or minimum viable product, and the big reveal about what Adam might be doing for Taylor Swift right now if he wasn't leading Fiat Republic. All right here on Money Never Sleeps. But listen, Adam, great to have you on the show tonight. Thanks again for joining. This is going to be fun, given that you and I first started talking a few months back. And you called me on a Thursday and said, "Hey, Pete, I got my first investor call tomorrow to pitch. And can you just give me a few tips?" So we had a chat. I gave a few tips, but I said to you, I said, just be aware that 95% of the first conversations you're ever going to have with an investor ends with nothing. So here's how to get some value out of it, and getting to the know, and then perhaps finding some other things you might be able to do on your pitch, other investors that they think might be interested in what you're doing. And, we had a good chat. And then you called me the next morning and you're like, "Pete, they offered me an investment right away and I got a term sheet coming." I'm like, "What? That doesn't happen." That was awesome. So I think that was a good bellwether to how, your early, knock on wood, progress that you guys have made with getting Fiat Republic going. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been extraordinary.
Cool.
I mean, I look back to some of those moments and I still can't believe like how fast it all moved.
Yeah, totally. But listen, why don't we dig in first to your backstory and just figure out where this all came from first, right? So why don't you just bring us up to speed with how you got to this point in your life and your career, yeah?
Yeah. So I started 14 years ago pretty much on this journey in payments, fintech, banking. I think fintech, when I started, that was 2006, even in circulation as a term, it was banking, right?
Yep.
Well, even payments is a derivative industry of banking. So here I was in Poland, Polish, first couple of years working for a merchant acquirer called Elavon. That was my very first sort of role in payments. And I remember the first year kind of being thrown into this chargeback department, right? Because it's an acquirer. You're getting into the chargeback department. That basically means they're teaching you everything that can go wrong in a card transaction. And that's how I started reading those, 1,000-page Visa and MasterCard chargeback handling manuals, dispute resolution. And they literally walk you through like every single bit where an issuer or like a bank can raise a challenge, where a card holder, so a consumer, can raise a challenge, and how you should handle all of this. So it was a perfect baptism by fire. Spent a year there. I mean, bless them. They're doing well. They're a global company. They still have a big office in Ireland. They're part of US Bancorp. I mean, global corporation. I think the training that I got there in just 1 year was just like astonishing. It was really, prepared me for for the worst, as in terms of what to expect out of the payments industry. After that, I went to a bank. Raiffeisen Bank is a banking group out of Austria and Vienna. They're headquartered in Vienna, but they had a subsidiary bank in Poland. I originally joined the operation in Raiffeisen Bank, looking after cards, because that's where I came from. Like they were, "Oh, okay, so you spent a year handling chargebacks for a merchant acquirer. Why don't you help us on the issuing side," right? So that was the first gig. 6 months in, and they're like, "Oh, Adam, I think you're a bit more than what meets the eye. There's the product management department that has been asking about you. Why don't you, go and talk to them," right? And sure enough, a week later, I had an interview with the department director of the transaction banking department, and they're like, "Yeah, we would love you to join." So I transferred over after 6 months from an operations department to a product management department, which is by all means, for all intents and purposes, considered as a business department, right?
Yep.
And there, like a traditional product management role in banks, it slightly differs from tech product management. It's more commercial. It's,
Hmm.
writing T's and C's, preparing pricing, for the different offerings, as well as tech. But, tech at the time, we're talking 2007. Tech at the time wasn't in a good place. I guess they
Yeah.
were
It was
still.
just the beginnings of cloud, really, at that point, right?
Exactly. They were still mainframe. Core banking systems were like, really, really cumbersome and difficult to change, right? But yeah, it was that time, and it was fascinating because I was in a bank that was considered as a fairly conservative bank, like a Germanic
Hmm.
bank, right? In the middle of the financial crisis, 2008, 2009, this is literally, I was still there. And Poland also, to everyone's surprise, was the only country in the EU that had positive, like green GDP growth in that time. So we were called the Green Island of
Okay.
of the European Union, um, not Ireland, but
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
No, we still got that claim here. Yeah,
yeah,
but
and
I'll share it with you for a little bit.
yeah, yeah. And so basically spent 3 4 years there helping them with transaction banking. Transaction banking is this obscure corporate banking
Hmm.
division that manages corporates, right, and SMEs and those complex sort of product like invoice financing, factoring, payments, but like international payments, like mass collections, mass payouts, that sort of stuff, right? So it was also a very interesting learning journey for me, like in the core banking, space. So yeah, then I had this brilliant idea of moving to the UK. Fast forward to 2012, and I was thinking to myself, I always wanted to live in a English speaking country. I studied linguistics with focus on English, so I was kind of following what I had set out to do in my life, I guess. And yeah, and I moved to the UK. My first job in the UK was at FIS,
Hmm.
so another card processing company. Quite like it. I mean, again, it's a big organization and they have multiple divisions or multiple facets to their business. I was in the debit and prepaid management, and it was a bit of a step down because I went from product manager to a business analyst, right? So I didn't stay long there, only 3 months, and then joined a
Okay.
company called UCA, which was essentially a alternative payment scheme based on vouchers that had like 19 or 16 digit codes. You would go to a corner shop, exchange your cash for a voucher, and then you would pay at participating merchants, right? They were that sort of play. And yeah, they hired me to sort of look after cards and start diversifying away from those vouchers and into
Hmm.
prepaid cards, right? So with Ucash, I actually launched one of the first travel money cards in the
Okay.
UK before the era of Revolut and the explosion of similar propositions in the UK that we're talking now 2013 14,
Yep.
right? And it was wildly successful because we managed to through leveraging the distribution network of Ucash, which was basically taking in cash in different countries in Europe and around the world for a voucher. So basically sitting on foreign currency, right? Being a UK company, having to bring it back to pound at some point. So we figured, why don't we just take those millions of euros or whatever and just sell it to British consumers at a profit via a travel money card. They would preload it to a travel money card and then go to France and spend it on wine in euros, right?
Of course, as you do. Yeah.
as you do, right? So it was wild because we didn't have any presence in travel money or in that market. But for some reason, Martin Lewis picked up the card, started waving it on ITV, and saying, "This is the best
Okay.
car that you can possibly buy if you want to go abroad." And all of a sudden, we went from zero to 10,000 or 15,000 cards in like a matter of months. So yeah, it was an interesting
Wow.
social experiment, but yeah, it was really successful. And then Ucash got acquired by PaySafe in the
Okay.
end. So this is when I left the company and actually joined Sainsbury's.
Yeah, I
That
saw
was
that.
that was quite a detour, but a very important one, for me and for my career, because it made me realize it helped me kind of gain this vantage point back on payments, back on banking from the perspective of a major retailer, right?
Mm.
That is Sainsbury's. And this is when I started thinking about, coalitions, consortiums, taking on an established player, which, at that time, the supermarkets don't necessarily appreciate the dominant position that some players have in the payments industry, and they wanted to do something of their own, right? They wanted to take on the big guy, and they were big enough, right, to do that. So anyway, Sainsbury's, it was a journey from zero to a head of department over 3 years. So got promoted a couple of times. Had my team, made a lot of impact. I was managing stuff from like point of sale payments, like at 20,000 tills that they had in stores. And then online, payments, accepting payments for groceries online and stuff like that. I actually launched contactless. So the privilege of you going to Sainsbury's and tapping your cards, that's me, my team as well. But yeah, it was like, obviously Sainsbury's was a bit late to the party,
Mm.
but they did well. I mean, considering the circumstances, and there was a lot of innovation happening within the organization. They were trying to sort of virtualize the checkout, right? Digitalize the checkout, put it into the phone, and they started doing those experiments. They're still doing them with Smart Shop. They have this proprietary technology that allows you to scan items and then check out virtually without even having to visit a till. So I was part of that, and helping them with payments. Also, one other interesting project there was Chop Shop. It's basically a 60-minute grocery delivery app before the era of Getter and
Yeah.
the others, Gorillas, and yeah, it's still running. It's available in London only, but it allows you to basically order up to 25 items and have it delivered to your doorstep in 60 minutes. And it's under
Oh, that's great.
Sainsbury's brand. My role was there, like I was one of the sort of co-leads, looking after payments and the payments end-to-end payment solution for it, trying to eliminate the till from the equation,
Okay.
having to integrate the payment solution to the till, and we managed to do it, which was quite nice. So yeah, after Sainsbury's, I went on to help a couple of London-based fintechs, Hyperjar, help them build their MVP. It's like a digital wallet proposition. After Hyperjar, Wi-Fi, or now Onvi, which is basically a QR code based pay at table restaurant payment app. So something that became popular, especially after COVID or during the era of COVID,
Yeah.
because Boris Johnson was scanning those on BBC. So yeah, help them also build their MVP. And then actually in 2019 landed in YC with a project to bring together supermarkets into a coalition. Yeah, that was quite an experience. A lot of learnings. They brainwash you there.
Yeah.
It's
Just for those who don't know, YC is Y Combinator, which is an accelerator program. Little one though. Yeah.
Yeah, very small, very small.
Yeah, very small.
And yeah, but like the stuff that I learned, and they teach you how do you build stuff from scratch with like $200,000, 2 people and 2 months, and then attentively talking to your users and making sure that you stay in touch with what your customer wants, and you build up your value prop. It's really like it's a proper brainwash, okay, but a very useful one. So after that, I joined a company called OpenPaid, and this was like my
Hmm.
first foray into banking as a service. And yeah, that was at the time when I joined OpenPaid. They were looking at multiple different verticals, and the entire banking as a service platform, or the entire banking as a service industry was sort of trying to figure out area to focus on and where are the biggest problems, right? I remember, we were talking about e-commerce, lending, neobanks, and all the different fintech areas, as well as crypto. Right. And, having been a trader myself since the second Bitcoin boom in 2017, I was a big proponent, whilst still at OpenPaid, of tackling the crypto use case. Right. But after 2 years in the company, decided to set up my own venture and essentially incepted an idea to just do banking as a service and compliance as a service for cryptocurrency platforms. And this is when
Absolutely.
Fiat Republic comes into existence. And that's the origin story.
Okay. It's amazing. And it's like you're talking me through this, Adam, and I like see this full payments stack historical evolution, basically coming out through your story,
Yeah.
right? And, 2007 feeling the beginnings of it with Elevon, and then kind of moving through ops into product management as the technology and industry was developing. and then getting really hardcore into the consumer side with UCash and with Sainsbury. And that around about the time, 2014, 15, 16, 17, were some of these ideals around the challenger banks. And
Yeah.
let's figure out this job to be done for the consumer. And let's develop a proposition for them. And you being right in the middle of all that. And then I've heard you say consortium a couple of times through the rest of that experience. And it's uncanny. Now, we're talking about this obviously in the lead up to Fiat Republic. And so naturally that story is going to go in that direction. But it just seems like this has been building up and is such a natural step for you to take forward. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been just gathering all of those experiences, the different vantage
Yeah.
points, right, along the way. And I'm always about the journey. I'm not just about the destination, right? So
Yeah.
like the journey that got me to where I'm at right now, and the journey that we, now as a team, as Fiat Republic, could continue on, right? That is what matters, right? And this is the, in a way, the destination is important because it sort of sets the vision, but the journey is, and the experience that you get and the different vantage points or observations you make are as important as whatever is your destination.
Absolutely. Okay, so tell us, you've given us a little hint into it, a little look into it but tell us what Fiat Republic is. And you've talked about the idea a little bit where it came from, but maybe explore that a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So Fiat Republic is a true hybrid, and I always like to sort of pull different pieces of different potentially divergent value propositions together. This is like a tendency that I had even when I was at Sainsbury's. I started learning this broadly, different industry, which was retail. Anecdotally, my first week, I remember the first technology team huddle at Sainsbury's, and we're talking about what is topping the sales, which is obviously bananas, Jack Daniels, and some organic chicken, right? And
Of course.
and everyone was so proud about that, right? And I'm like, whoa, this is a totally different world, right? This is like the guys here. This is retail, right? This is where
Yeah.
where consumers, like on a day-to-day basis, massive amounts of them, like huge amounts of them, are interacting with a brand. So that thinking, basically looking at the multiple value propositions from different angles and combining them into one, is very much the core of Fiat Republic. So this is basically three value props in one. So the first one being banking as a service, right? Banking as a service sometimes it's still misunderstood. It's like, what does that mean? Okay, so you're doing banking through API. It's like, what is that, right? What does that solve? Like, what is the problem? In our world, or in our view, it amounts to aggregation of banking rails, okay, and providing them through one single access point, one API. Right, so you only have to connect once to get access to, I don't know, 7, 8 different currencies that are actually provided by 8 different banks behind the scenes. But you, as a customer, as a business customer, you don't see this. All you have, all you see is Fiat Republic or another banking as a service player who gives you one API to connect to, and then allows you to send money through those, or keep money on those rails, right? That is banking as a service at its core. So aggregation of banking and payment rails. Second value proposition is, given that we are essentially a specialized banking as a service player, specifically specializing on crypto, because there's a massive issue with crypto, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'll expand on it a little bit more. It is mostly to do with compliance, right, and lack of understanding what a crypto platform should be doing to satisfy requirements of banking partners. And now in crypto, we're at this inflection point where fiat, so traditional currency, is absolutely necessary for crypto to take off in any meaningful manner, right? Because this is where customers come from. They come from
It's
dollars.
the only
They
way
come.
in. It's the only way in.
That's the only way in. It's an entry port. I keep saying to some of our partners. So without it, you really can't do Web3. It is like, Web3 doesn't exist without. This is not Web 2, by the way. This is traditional banking, right? It's
Yep.
managing your money as it's been managed for hundreds of years. So that clash of two worlds, the world of banking or fintech or payments with the world of crypto, is creating so much friction right now that on the crypto side, it is literally preventing the growth of the industry, right?
Hmm.
Because it's this handicap that is put on top of, on top of the biggest platforms in the world and their growth, right? They cannot surpass that sort of ceiling, if you like, because the traditional world of finance it doesn't want to play, right?
Yep.
That is the main conflict here. And what that means on the ground for a crypto platform is they cannot connect to just one banking provider. Just to cover their basic needs, they would need to connect at least to two or three, right? Because
Yep.
you've got GBP, euro, dollars. Typically that means two or three banks, right? Because there's no one bank that offers one connection to all three of those. Then the other one is banks are really, just looking double clicking on the banks for a moment. Banks are really scared. Okay, this is a very specific type of fear. It's a fear of unknown. They're scared of something that they cannot understand. The problem is that on the crypto side, the conditions are not favorable to making the banks understand what is actually happening in crypto, right? Because the entire crypto movement comes from, oh, let's take on the banks, let's
Yeah.
revolutionize financial services. This adversary, and what we're seeing now, this adversarial tone and this sort of adversarial or a confrontational approach is really losing, right? It's really something that is subsiding, and big crypto platforms are all waking up to the fact that they have to play by the rules to be able to innovate and to be able to grow the industry. So with that problem, and I expanded on it a bit more, but basically Fiat Republic is taking that problem and applying, which we believe is a systemic problem that handicaps the growth of the
It
crypto
is.
industry. We're addressing it with a systemic solution. Okay, the solution being we're trying to pull those biggest crypto players where because those are the trendsetters, right? Those are the guys that everyone looks up to. Coinbase, everyone looks up to Kraken, right? In a way, they're the first ones. They're the trailblazers. They're the sort of first movers in many respects. So we want to gather them into this cozy coalition, this consortium, right? And apply almost like a carrot and stick approach, right? You've got some benefits, but we really need your collaboration. We need you to play with us in terms of compliance, in terms of AML, so that we can help you and help the industry change the perception of you and your services with the banks, okay, and the regulatory community, because that conflict is so big that it's like on the bank side, it's often based on misconceptions. I think crypto is this, right? Or I
Yep.
think crypto is that, and then CEO says that, and all of a sudden the entire department says that, and then that results in an internal risk policy that is just banning crypto, completely, right?
Yeah. I feel like I'm quoting Chris Dixon from A16Z once a day these days, where he said, I've never met anyone in this space who is both skeptical and informed.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like, it's not, you look at the banks, and depending upon which bank it is you're talking about, which tier, which level you're talking about,
Yeah,
I almost start quoting Robin Williams from Good Will Hunting when he's giving Matt Damon a hug and saying, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's that these are where they've come from. And it's up to folks like you and me and others that are in this space to inform
yeah,
and to educate. And you can, and it's a lot easier to do that when you're doing that, when you're talking to many at the same time, and
yes.
it sounds like that's what you've got your head around. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a unified front. So this compliance as a service as well, which is where we're getting into really hard, difficult stuff. Okay, this is like at a level of, hey, Coinbase just got a rejection from a bank that they were trying to put a payment through, and are
Yeah.
asking, who is Pete? Where is his
Yeah.
50,000? Like, why all of a sudden 50,000 euros on this IBAN? I want Pete's
Yeah.
ID, Pete's address, Pete's utility bill, Pete's source of funds. Give me,
Yep.
right? And then Pete, in the meantime, is waiting. What is happening with my money? Like, why am I waiting? That is the sort of stuff that we are, double clicking on, unpacking, and it's like, what are actually those flows, those processes that are taking place, and where is the disconnect? And it tends to be lack of data, lack of any sort of information, because the bank, like, just put yourself in the bank shoes for a moment. The bank doesn't see anything. They just see the
Yep.
name and whatever SEPA or Swift or faster payments participant puts in the payment message, right? Which sometimes is addressed, but not much more, right? So,
Yep.
what are they to deduct or to conclude from on the basis of the data that they're getting? Not much, right? So what we're trying to do, and this is this, let's say, compliance as a service value proposition, or part of our value proposition, is to inject more data, more information, like who is Pete? Why is he trying to buy crypto? And then once he buys crypto, what is happening with that crypto? Right?
Yep.
What is he doing with it? Is he sending it from one wallet to another, maybe to cold storage? Maybe he's selling it on another platform. It's all visible. It's blockchain,
It
right?
is. It is.
You can see Pete. You just need to know that it's Pete with this token, right?
Yep.
That someone gives you. So we're trying to open the bank's eyes to kind of this information is there. It's available. We can act as a broker, right? We can teach them how to ingest that data, and then over time make them a bit more comfortable with banking crypto, and hopefully change the perception of the crypto industry in the process. That is the play in this, let's say, middle value proposition.
Hey everyone, this is Pete. Let me tell you about the folks at Philip Lee. A few years ago, I was at my first venture capital industry dinner in Dublin, and honestly, I felt a bit lost. I bumped into Andrew Tizali, one of the partners at Philip Lee. He bought me a pint and introduced me to the team, and they took me under their wing. That take you under their wing approach has been what I've heard consistently from fintech and crypto startups who I know have worked with Philip Lee in Dublin and London to help them wrap the right legal framework around their business, fundraising, and regulatory needs. And I can't recommend them enough. Get in touch with the team at philiplee.ie or on moneyneversleeps.ie/Philip Lee to learn more. Aha. So you would know your way around Etherscan.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And for those that don't know out there, Etherscan, when you are in your crypto wallet, and you can end up going to the Etherscan website to basically see the transaction, where it came from, where it went to. As Adam said, it's all open public record when you're dealing with crypto addresses.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
And then the final bit that is tying it all together is the consortium, right? But beyond just the compliance play, or making it more palatable for the banks, it is also trying to give the crypto industry a voice that it's been lacking, because naturally this is a nascent industry. It's just in its infancy, and in this stage there's a lot of competition, right? There's the Krakens, the Bitstamps, they're all vying for the same type of customer. So but that doesn't help. Most importantly, that doesn't help the perception of the industry as a whole, because it makes it look unpredictable to the banks, and too fast to the banks, and too fast to the regulators, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to bridge that gap, gather them together, give them a voice, represent them, advocate for them, right? With the FCA, with the EU regulators, whatever lobby groups we can join, and represent the our membership, our consortium. That's what we're going to do, and we're going to leverage the understanding that we have from the data that we obtain by being in the middle of this to inform the parties that are not necessarily involved in crypto on a day-to-day basis. They're trying to regulate crypto, but they don't know how, like the regulators, right? So that's the holistic approach, or the systemic solution that we're building to address a very systemic problem, that is banks and crypto don't really get along.
Yeah, they don't. And I mean, just even a couple of years ago here in Ireland, I went to go visit one of the banks just to talk to because someone said, Pete, you know a bit about crypto. Can you come talk to us about that? I just met their onboarding team, and they said that they couldn't actually, I won't name the bank, but they said they couldn't actually bank any crypto players because the Central Bank of Ireland didn't say it was okay yet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the Central Bank of Ireland is never going to tell you it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
What you need to do is demonstrate that you understand the risks of onboarding a crypto player, and show them your procedures and your policies as to how you identify those businesses and what their risks may be, and how you actually talk about it in your risk committee, and how you then actually, what is the approval process.
Absolutely.
Right? And then you need to submit that to the Central Bank of Ireland if you think it is a material change to how you do business and your operating model, and give them a heads up that it's happening. And if they have something to say about it, great. And if not, wonderful. So, I think that now I put my hand up and said, listen, I could help you guys change your onboarding checklist,
Yeah.
but I think you could. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. It's funny you say that because actually it reminds me of of a trip we did to one of the EU countries. I won't name the country, but basically that regulator in that country, we went there. We went to talk to them, and we said, "Hey, we want to." Set up shop here. We're bringing potentially, big cryptocurrency platforms into your country. Like, do you like this? Like, what do you say to this? Like, what's your comment? And they were like, that's amazing. It sounds great. More business, more taxes for us to charge, They were like
yeah,
very positive about it. But, and then they like, in the end, they're like, we would wish that our member banks would come to us first as opposed to some foreigner coming and obviously opening us our eyes to the prospect or the opportunity, but it would be great for the bank to come to me and pitch this.
yeah,
So
no, absolutely.
it's interesting how those dynamics, between the regulators and the banks play out in the end. And it's a bit of a like, if one party doesn't move, the other one won't, but the other one won't move without the other, and it's chicken and egg, right?
Yeah,
Who's gonna make the
yeah.
first move?
It's like the wallflowers of the teenage dance, sitting there waiting to go up and ask somebody for a dance. They just won't do it.
Absolutely.
But listen, the Fiat Republic name. I was going to ask you how you came up with that, and I could guess based upon what I've learned so far tonight. But why don't you tell us how you came up with Fiat Republic? It seems kind of obvious, but either confirm or dispel my assumptions here.
I was like, it didn't require much. I was just trying to, as a consumer, send money to Bitstamp. Okay, bless them. They're a very good platform. But it just took ages for me just to get representation or allocation of my own money, right? Or to
Yeah,
see my own money on Bitstamp and start trading, right? And that was one day that I was like, oh, okay, this is, it's like, and then because Bitstamp are actually very responsible with their compliance framework. Okay, they check everything. They KYC, and I was like, this can be done better. I mean, this can be literally more seamless, but it's not Bitstamp's fault. It is the fault of the banking
yeah,
partners and the banking ecosystem that they have to work with. And that made me realize that it's actually not that, it's not the reputable, the biggest banks in the world, the tier ones, let's put it this way, that engage with those sort of flows right now. They don't want to touch this, right? And they don't want to play ball. They don't want to kind of be involved in those money flows. And that's why the ultimate user experience suffers, right? Me sort of waiting for my own money to start trading for a couple of days. In the
yeah,
meantime, Bitcoin goes up and down, 10% here, 20% there. And I'm pissed, right?
yeah,
Because I
yeah.
just can't participate in the market. And that was when I really, like, it just dawned on me, this needs to be fixed. And I'm a big believer in crypto. I'm a supporter of a couple of projects. I'm a big fan of Polygon as well, Matic. I
Yeah.
think it's going to go places. And there's so many projects that are already hinging on Polygon. It's absolutely amazing. It came from Ethereum, right? It
Yep.
is like
Yep.
it's an offshoot from Ethereum. And that just, it's a testament to Ethereum's sort of foresight and the vision of Vitalik. But yeah, I'm a big supporter of crypto. So like, as I started learning more about bank as a service, it just became a natural thing to do. Just connecting the dots.
Absolutely.
Put a specific bank as a service play just for crypto, but also make sure that it's addressing the systemic problem. It is hard. It is harder than just providing an API, but it is what needs to be done, because otherwise nothing is going to change in this industry or in this intersection of the two industries.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Kind of shifting gears a little bit. When you and I last chatted, Adam, you talked about your leadership style and you mentioned Fellowship of the Rings, right?
Yeah.
which really stuck with me, and I, just my imagination starts going wild around that. Can you share more about that and tell me how that works and why it's working?
It's a very silly story, but it actually ended up working quite well for me as I was advancing in my path of being just a people manager, or I guess a
Yeah.
leader, establishing myself as a leader. I watched Lord of the Rings, right, and I just tried to look at the different relationships that the members of the Fellowship of the Rings had with one another. And it just dawned on me that like this it's almost like a utopian leadership style where you're
Yeah.
taking into account the completely different personalities, completely different skill sets, and giving them their own space and empowering them, right? And somehow as a unit the team just works brilliantly, right? And then ultimately manages to deliver the goal or the objective that was put in front of them. I think, so this style of, hey, you're a autonomous being that has its own perspective, its own skill set, your own style, right, of communication. You just need to be put in an environment where you're complementary to the people that are beside you, right? And
Yeah.
then as a unit, there's that Aragorn, right? That is the kind of the
Yeah.
leader, right? There's the elf that is quick and nimble and agile, right? There's the dwarf that is a bit rough, but
Yeah.
also a very sturdy character, right? The protector. There's this Frodo, right? This courageous, something that you wouldn't expect from Hobbit, right? So
Yeah.
I'm just taking that framework and applying it. Okay, so who's the elf? Who's the Aragorn? Who's
That's what I
the
was going to ask you. Which one are you?
I think in this case, or in the case of Fiat Republic, I'm the Aragorn. I want to go as far as kind of trying to name the individual co-founders or team members.
Yeah, no,
Like,
I won't ask you to do that because I know who some of them are, and they may not like that.
so, but it's a metaphor for appreciating where the differences and how diverse perspectives people have and what are their experiences, and also giving them space to just shine, right? And putting it together or molding it together as this highly diverse, differentiated team that can lean on one another. And I found in my experience also building teams that this tends to work when you have peers, right? Where the hierarchy is not perhaps as established as in massive teams. It kind of works with founder teams. Now that I have the benefit of the hindsight,
It
it works.
does.
It works with founder teams because it's this balancing act that needs to be going on all the time. And if you can appreciate those processes in between different team members, then you're more likely to be the inspiring guy, and they're gonna just naturally follow you because they think it's theirs, right? It is
Yeah.
that's the beauty of leadership. If you manage to create imitation of what you're doing, and then they just take it and run with it, that is the most beautiful outcome that you can achieve as a leader. And I think, that's where I'm coming from. This is the, let's say, genesis of that framework.
Yeah, it's a great grounding idea, right? And if you keep just thinking back to that when you're in a situation where like, oh God, how are we going to get through this?
Yeah.
And leveraging everybody's strengths and leaning on each other is just absolutely critical. And I'm glad we talked about this because it's giving me some new thoughts as well for some of the things I'm up to these days, which is pretty cool. You guys recently raised a big seed round, and
Yep.
pretty impressive to see that. It was $3 million, was it?
$3.5 million.
Yeah, so $3.5 million, and you've got more that you're working on. So can you tell us how you went about putting together that seed round and how you thought about the investors when you were doing that?
Yeah, so originally, because of we already went through the let's say the consortium and the community play that we were trying to put together. Originally, my idea was to just take money from potential customers or members of this consortium,
Mm-hmm.
right? I wasn't even
Yeah.
thinking about VCs. It was an advisor that came to me, a good friend of mine, and he basically said, "Look, VCs are just going to look at this. This space is hot. Might as well just pitch to them." And I just sure enough, I went and pitched to the first one that I had on my LinkedIn profile as a first degree contact. He replied, and they ended up making us an offer literally a couple of days later.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
That's the
that doesn't
start.
happen.
And
Space is so hot, but you guys are good. So,
yeah, and that
kudos to
kickstarted.
that.
Kickstarted it's almost like a snowball. It just started with that firm, that first sort of fund, they started spreading the word. We started spreading the word that they are interested, because all of a sudden now we're talking about a syndicate, right? It's not them.
Yeah.
They might be
Yeah.
just leading. So now, okay, so we're looking for another investor, and then in a couple of weeks, I was talking to 30 VC firms all at once. It just at some point it just spiraled out of control. To be honest with you, I actually went back to the month when I was actually actively fundraising, obviously on behalf of the team and the company. I had 100, and I'm not exaggerating this even a tiny bit, 110 meetings with
Wow.
investors over 8 weeks, and each meeting
Wow.
at least 30 minutes.
That's a lot. That's a lot. And out of
So
those 110,
yeah,
5 invested?
3 funds invested, and we've got 13 angels that have joined
Okay.
the party. So essentially, yeah, so 16 investors.
Yeah. So roughly, what, 15, 14%,
Yeah,
right? Or a little bit less than that. But that's impressive. Well, that's what you have to do. I've known
it's
founders
a
for
numbers
years
game.
that did 200 conversations
Yeah,
before they got their put together, the first few million. And it all depends on what's happening in the market, the cycle time of the market, and obviously how good you are at telling the story and getting the point across. So well done. And
thank you.
when you think about, where this is going next, a lot of work ahead of you guys to get this done and to get this in place. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very unique play, what we're doing or what we're trying to put together, and it needs a lot of firepower. It needs that firepower up front. Okay, we believe we have a window of opportunity, and that window is likely to close at some point later this year, and we want to make the most out of it. So that's why our value in the company right now is speed. It's
Yeah.
number one, and like that literally is a leadership principle, value, whatever you call it. It is the guiding light for everything that we do, every single process that we put together. We're optimizing for. We're trying to make, take shortcuts, but responsible shortcuts, not reckless shortcuts. We're even going as far as buying companies to
Yep.
advance our agenda. So yeah, I would say that we're pretty obsessed with speed. Okay, and this is part of the pitch as well, right? It's, you need to stand up, because this is an intersection of two worlds. You need to stand up some kind of a protocol that is going to wedge itself in between those two worlds, right? This is beyond just being a supplier to a business customer. This is trying to become a standard setter. That's a lot of heavy lifting. That's a lot of, movement making even, right? This is a social experiment in many ways. So although the social aspect is more on the, let's say, business side, right? That's why it's more nuanced, because like each business stakeholder, each organization will have a different agenda, and then stakeholders within that organization will have a different point of view, or different experience, different exposure to different decisions in the organization. So it's a bit more nuanced, it's a bit more complicated, but ultimately those guys are all pulling in the same direction. That's very important to kind of understand. They're all trying to make crypto go mainstream, right?
Mm-hmm.
I listened to Brian Armstrong, right, and his vision of unlocking economic freedom. I'm 100% with that, right? This needs to happen, but for that to happen, there needs to be more dialogue with the sort of establishment, with the sort of the status quo, the current way of moving money around, of investing, right? Like the current treatment of asset classes. There needs to be this dialogue, and that's why, everything that we do, from our technology, from our approach to compliance, our processes, the community that we're building, we're all sort of always mindful that, we need to be able to foster dialogue to kind of make the two sides talk to one another. If we are,
You do.
if we're necessary in the middle, so be it. And obviously, we're going to make a business out of that. But ultimately, it is, the industry that will benefit. and it's an entire crypto industry that that we're taking on. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. The platform, we've got a planned MVP launch, so we're almost there.
Well
We're
done.
starting
Good.
with two currencies and with a couple of members. We call them members, not customers, and very
Of
intentionally,
course.
and a few banks as well, right? So we've got this, because like you can look at this and say, oh, this is a two-sided network. It's always going to have that pitfall, but if you have traction on both sides, you're actually quite well positioned to start brokering, right? To being this middleman.
Well, yeah, no, if you were always in your career, if you were always that translator, right?
Yeah.
Between the consumer needs and the development side, and then you've kind of made that your thing, and now that is Fiat Republic. And with your approach to leading the team and everybody playing to their strengths, it feels like you've got a whole team of translators there, or
Pretty much.
facilitators. There's another word: translator, facilitator. There's one
Interpreter.
more: interpreter. No, there's a fourth one. I can't think of it right now, but that is the word. If I think of it, I will share it with you and put it into
Yeah.
the show notes. But looking at the at all of this in totality, Adam, what you guys have done is really impressive. You've moved really quick. And Joey Krug from Pantera Capital, when I talked to him last year, he talked about identifying speed, right? And saying
Mm.
you got to move fast. It's not just because he thinks it's cool that a developer can move fast, but that's what you need to be able to do in this space.
And to be fair, like the team is a big part of this, right? Of why we're even able to go as fast as we are going. And they all come from different backgrounds, and they all are very skilled and very experienced in their respective areas. So it is a combination of like what has allowed us to go so fast is a combination of talent, alignment under one sort of vision or one overarching objective to kind of help crypto get mainstream, right? And yeah, just giving it our best shot, right? Like individually, but also
Yeah.
as a collective. And I think a lot of what my conversation with investors was basically selling the team, right? It was basically like, how are we this Fellowship of the Ring already?
Yeah.
Right, and we're just gonna go places if we only get the backing, if we only get the support
You will.
that we really deserve. I
You will.
believe like this team deserves any support that we're getting. So but yeah, but the task at hand is hard, it's difficult, and it's going to take us a while to sort of build out the full extent of that vision. And we might need to change stuff, we might need to tweak. I mean, we remain open-minded with regards to that, but yeah, I think we're on the right course.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, last question here. This is the final question we ask everybody on this show, Adam. What is one thing that people wouldn't expect to know about you?
I gotta think about that, because I wanted to say something, but then I'm like, is that
Bare your soul. Bare your soul. I shared a story last week about donkey bolognese, which I'm not going to repeat. Well, it was on the, but you'll have to listen to it. It's on the episode with Matt Larby from Realm. But what do you think? What's one thing that people wouldn't expect to know about you?
probably would have been the fact that I almost became a professional musician.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I can see that.
I was supposed to write songs for Taylor Swift. Okay, that was the
What?
that was the ambition of the 20 something year old. It didn't quite go that way. I ended up in finance, but yeah, I have music education. I played cello. I played guitar. That's my main instrument.
Wow.
So yeah, I went to Berklee College of Music,
Okay.
which is by far considered as this factory of producers. So that was supposed to be me. Okay, it didn't quite go that way. I don't regret it, but I still music is very much a second part of my life. I mean, I rehearse. I used to have a band. When I moved to London, I stopped playing in a band, but I still kept going to gigs and singing on stage, going to jam sessions. Just have that release of audiences listening to you, and you're just on stage. So yeah,
Wow.
that's the stuff that people wouldn't probably expect.
Well, you know what? There's going to be some point where you're going to get back up on stage, and I can't wait to see that. because it's gonna be awesome. What would be the style, in terms of what you would still play if
Yeah.
you were to
So
do it, and if it's not Taylor Swift, right?
no, I mean, Taylor is great. I mean, the producers and the composers that she has behind her are amazing. I mean, you got to respect that sort of the craft of fellow musicians there. But my style, I'm a bit stuck in the 70s. I like soul, funk,
Cool.
also blues, because like my dad raised me like that. He's a massive,
Okay.
it used to be a guitarist, a blues guitarist as well. So
I love it.
so those are my, like, jazz a little bit as well. I mean, if I'm in the mood, but yeah, mostly those, let's say, three genres: soul, funk,
Yeah.
blues.
Yeah, you need to be a pretty good musician to keep your bones up with that with those genres. So
Yeah.
I get it. Well, listen, Adam, it's been a fantastic chat. Thanks so much for coming on the show tonight. Just absolutely love what you guys are doing, and just keep doing it, right? You guys are gonna go far.
Thank you so much, Pete. Thanks for having me.
That does it for this week, folks. Thanks to Adam Bialy for opening up his mind to help us figure out why he does what he does. Links to get in touch with Adam and learn more about Fiat Republic are in the show notes on our website, moneyneversleeps.ie. So check us out online and subscribe to our Money Never Sleeps newsletter as well. Also, thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for mixing and editing this episode. Conan is an excellent media man to get in touch with when you're thinking about launching your own podcast. As for me, I'm an early stage startup investor and advisor focused on where fintech meets crypto and crypto meets Web3. If you'd like to talk to me about your business, drop me a line on info@moneyneversleeps.ie. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!
Money never sleeps, pal.